Yes. Generally nowadays the teachers don't teach metta much. Tenajam, he doesn't teach metta. What he just says, you should have metta. And if you do the practice, the anapana practice or the buddho, metta will come. It'll come because when one feels happy, one feels metta. One doesn't feel any animosity to people. And the happiness will bring metta automatically. But if you practice metta, the trouble with it is it's like a magnet. It attracts people. And before long you've got people coming all the time and it's a damn nuisance.
Ajahn, the Dhutanga practices, would you say that they do work on the aversion? They do help the lessening of aversion as you start to maybe accept dukkha more, or...
This depends very much on the character. If it's the real dosa character, mostly they'll just increase anger.
What practices do you recommend for the dosa characters?
Oh, anapana is very good. Anapana or buddho is very good. That brings metta as well. But the thing is, one must be careful of the body contemplations, and particularly the asubhas. Those can easily work in the mind in such a way that you practice at night and the next day you get up full of anger. You get up really sort of, everybody's sort of saying, what's gone wrong with him? Like that. And it's because of the practice. The practice has just stirred up the inherent anger that was there in the person. And this means he's doing the wrong practice. He should never practice the contemplations or the dhutangas until he's managed samadhi. If one can attain samadhi, then you can do the more sort of rigorous practices, because the samadhi will hold it. Samadhi brings a sense of sukha, calm, and when that's present, then the kilesas, particularly the kilesas of anger, haven't got any reason to come up. But to do that straight off, thinking that that's going to sort of do the more rigorous practices, the ascetic practices, straight off like that, without having got to samadhi, it can cause trouble. This is particularly so with the dosa character, but the loba character doesn't matter. It won't harm them.
Specifically, what type of Dhutanga practices are you talking about? Many of the Dhutanga practices are a regular part of our lifestyle already.
Yeah, we have certain practices which we do in the as bhikkhus, and those are just things which we do by habit when one's used to it, and they help to keep one's wants and things down to a minimum. But I mean, the things like sitting all night, sitting practice, the any better, which means you go out, you're wandering, and go wherever you are, when time comes at night, you just stop at that place. These sort of things can become very difficult first.
What about contemplating dukkha vedana?
Again, this is more practice for the lower character.
What is it which one should wait until one has a firm foundation in samadhi?
I would say yes, yeah. Contemplate dukkha, yes, it's good, but you have to know your own character. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a go at some of these practices, as long as you've got enough mindfulness to see what the results are. If you can see what the results are, then if you see that this makes me very angry, it makes me feel upset and no good, then you have to stop doing that. I mean, the way really is that unless you've got a teacher who can actually say, oh yes, you must do this or you mustn't do that, then one must test for oneself. But in testing for oneself, one must see what the results are. One must be very careful to watch and see what results come out of it.
Lumpur, one practice that used to be very more common is staying up like all night on one pra, and now it's not mandatory in our monastery. Now it's optional. And what do you think of that practice? In looking at myself, I find that sometimes I can feel much benefit from it. I feel a deepening of my practice the next day, even though I'm sleepy and have to rest, for some hours. But it feels that it benefits me. But at other times, I do find that the next day I feel very irritable, very kind of upset. The least little thing kind of makes me angry. But I can contain it, but still, I notice this in the mind, and so the results vary, from week to week. What is your thought on that, on this practice of staying up all night in one pra?
I would say probably if it's like that, it's a bit too much for you. There's no harm in staying up a bit longer than you would normally. I would say probably it's too much otherwise. I don't know where it's gone to. Should have it somewhere. Body. Yeah. The sort of fundamental way of looking at it is to realize that down inside oneself, down here, there's a child. It's the child that one was. Child that one was when one was young. And it's good to look at that child and see the common factors that are still there and really what one's got to do is to bring that child up. And bringing up children, you don't make it too rough for them, but you don't make it too easy for them either. And discipline is necessary.
Ompa, do you actually mean specific tendencies, or just a kind of a childishness that we all seem to have to some extent?
It's the behavior of children. The sort of how do you call it? The way a child behaves and does things. Oh. What's this now? Oh, water. Oh, no.
Would you like a drink? A hot drink?
Tea or something? Some warm water?
Cup of tea and sugar. Yeah. Got something that makes tea here.
English breakfast, Earl Grey.
No, not Earl Grey. English breakfast, all right. Yes. The best is the orange pico.
Orange pico.
No, broken orange pico is good too.
Oh,
but
I've got some. I can make an offer too.
oh, what are these? Oh, yes, they look good. Yes.
This one's orange pico.
Oh.
What size? So you have some orange pico?
Yes. Cool. I have to put my glasses on to see that clearly.
Darjeeling.
It's Darjeeling, yeah. They're on orange pico, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. Really good. If you say orange pico, then it must be that, because that defines it. If you say English breakfast, they can put anything in it. Oh, thank you.
Maybe we can open it.
Yeah, throw it in. Put it up there. Okay. I think most Americans don't know about tea.
You're correct with this one.
Yeah, they lost out because the Boston Tea Party.
Oh yeah, give it a whole.
Serves us right, doesn't it?
Yeah, they lost a damn good drink because of it.
A lot of bad karma there, I guess. Spoil it for the rest of it.
It's the beginning of a coffee culture.
You know coffee, though.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And then Lipton came in and took over the whole tea industry.
Yeah.
All I knew was Lipton when I was growing up.
Yeah, it's not very good tea either. It's sort of what I would call mass-produced tea.
Right. That's right.
My uncle was a tea planter.
What?
My uncle.
Oh, he was?
He was a tea planter in India.
In India? Oh.
I went to his estate. A beautiful place.
Oh. North India, is it?
No, south.
South India?
The Anamali Hills.
Did you have spiritual interests when you were?
No, I was out there. My father was mining engineer. He was working on the mines. My father and mother came from Wales, and he went out there. I was born out there. No, in India. Whether that has something to do with my interest in Buddhism, I don't know. It's possible.
How was it you first recognized your spiritual interests?
Oh, well, I first recognized them by reading a book. It wasn't a very good book on Buddhism, but it started me off. Previous to that, I had interests, but they were vague.
So the Buddha Dhamma made immediate intuitive sense to you, you would say?
I don't know really. I mean, I could never make sense of Christianity.
Paul, what was it which really sustained you and encouraged you when you first arrived at the first few years at Bandar, really to put in the effort, the long hours of Jongrom, and what kind of reflections, or where did the enthusiasm and energy come from which sustained you in your practice?
Well, I never really had enough enthusiasm, I felt. But the thing was, going back further than that, when I was working in England, I knew while I was working there that I wouldn't be doing this all my life. I knew it was just something I was doing temporary. I didn't know what I would be doing later on, but I knew it wasn't that. I was an electrical engineer, and I worked there, and so in a slightly lazy way, sort of did my work there, and, got on all right in it. And I wasn't particularly discontented, although there was a sort of nagging feeling that I didn't understand what the situation was. I used to go back from work. I had a bicycle, and a bike to work, and then I'd push the bike back, walking, and I used to sort of think of things while I was walking. I liked it. And one of the problems I had was, here I am, and here's the world about me in this state. Now, it must, if you look back, everything must have come together to be in this state now, otherwise you wouldn't be in this state. I never properly worked that one out at that time, anyway. I don't know if you understand what.
Would you call that an insight into karma or cause and effect in general? Or?
No, it was a kind of problem that it seemed to me that everything, everything in the world, all the things that were operating, they were operating in this manner at this moment. And so they must have been in previous states all leading up to this moment. And I thought, what is the determining factor there? I mean, the answer to that, of course, is that the states are all illusory anyway. There's no reality in them.
Did that come as a sudden conclusion, or was it a gradual conviction?
Oh, no, that came much later.
But did it come suddenly, or?
The basis of it came when I started reading a book by Radhakrishnan, his History of Indian Philosophy. I never finished the book, but
it's a big book.
Yeah, but in it I saw the philosophy of how all one's sensations are internal, and that struck home straight away. I went, oh yes, that's true. Why didn't I see it before? I didn't bother about the book after that. That was enough. But later on, I went to Dasgupta's book. I went through that. This Dasgupta, History of Indian Philosophy.
So, how have you gone back, or how frequently have you returned to, say, Indian philosophy, in particular, maybe Advaita?
Oh no, I don't bother about it much now. I did find out what these things meant, more or less, and I got a fair knowledge of it. But the point is, so much of Indian philosophy has come from Buddhism. Oh, thank you. that the best thing is to go to Buddhism anyway, straight away, and see. Because the Indian philosophy, they picked the bones off Buddhism, really. You see, the Advaita teaching was practically Buddhist, and that comes from Gaudapada, who said that he worships the Buddha. It's in the Mandukya Upanishad.
But as an incarnation of Vishnu, right?
No, he did not. No. He said straight. Oh. Yeah, the Indians say, well, yes, he means that.
Oh.
But that wasn't what he said.
Oh.
Going by what the Upanishad says, anyway.
What was his name? Sorry, found it.
Gaudapada. He was the teacher of Shankara. And Shankara was a big mouth, I think. He was just talked a lot without understanding. Gaudapada was the real one. Actually, the Mandukya Upanishad is very short. It's no more than 2 pages. No. And the Sankhya teaching it's difficult to know how much of that came from Buddhism, or if the Buddha used that and saw the real meaning behind it, because either that could be the basis of the Paticcasamuppada, or the Paticcasamuppada was the basis of the Sankhya teaching. I don't know which. But it's the Sankhya teaching is not the same as Paticcasamuppada. There's some very big differences in it. For instance, they say that the Purusha is like the soul, which is separate all the time from the rest of the functions.
Purusha and Prakriti.
I can't remember now. Ages since I looked at it. But there's a sort of hierarchy. How I think the Purusha gives there's Prakriti. I think is the active component.
Yes.
I think it gives rise to Buddhi, or maybe something in between, and it sort of goes down like that until it comes down to physical form. But the way it looks like that, it's as though it's coming sort of down until you get physical body and so on, which is not the Paticcasamuppada. Not at all.
In some ways, Tenajam Mahabodhi speaks about the citta. It sounds to some people to be similar to Indian philosophy. For example, how would if you have a citta that is outside the 5 khandhas, which is unchangeable, How is that different than a soul theory?
The chitta is outside the five khandhas because it's the nature of nibbana, really. The chitta doesn't die, but the chitta has within it the kilesas and Buddha, Dhamma in it also, has both. And it depends on circumstances which one arises. And there's often a battle goes on. And the thing is that the chitta, when the sensation arises in the khandhas, the chitta turns into vijnana by becoming dual. The duality is the subject and the object. That duality. And when that duality is there, then it has formed the situation for the world. Because the duality is the world, and it's a changeable thing. But the situation it's such that that chitta immediately dies away. And if the sensation isn't there, it just reverts to its true nature, which is emptiness.
If you have a citta which doesn't die and which isn't dukkha, could you call that a soul?
Oh, if that's it, it's nibbana. If there's no dukkha there. Because for no dukkha to be there, the kilesas must have been completely overcome.
So, what exactly is different there than the eternalist view?
What is
different in that way of looking at it from the eternalist view?
What is the eternalist view? I'm not sure.
That there's some immutable entity in a being which emerges and in some way lasts for...
No, what's wrong with the eternalist view is it's an entity. But it is not like that. This isn't an entity. This is the sort of background of the idea of self, where self is a fixed entity. But it isn't. There is self, everybody's got self, but self is a changing thing. It's whirling about all over the place. And it's changing into this and changing into that. It's not that there is self isn't there, but that it's a changeable thing, and therefore it's quite dynamic. And you can't pin it down and say it's this or it's that. Because once you pin it down, it immediately changes. Because of that, the eternalist view is quite wrong. Because if you have something there that's pinned down, it's unchangeable. In effect, that must be nibbana, and it's not an entity. Because where you've got entities, you have comparisons between different entities. And when you have comparisons like that, those entities have got to be impermanent to exist.
So, Paul, regarding contemplation, would you say it's safer to contemplate anicca before contemplating anatta? Or does it matter?
No, I would say you have to do whichever of them you find suits yourself best. But I would say make sure your samadhi's there first.
And, what level of samadhi has to be present?
Well, go in until you're completely happy.
Oh.
In other words, you feel happy, and that you can say, well, if things are changeable or if they're not changeable, I'm happy. It doesn't matter.
Lungpo, what word would you give to use to describe that which continues after the body drops away? Like we talk about going to another birth, coming back and being reborn. That which is reborn, or that which moves on to the next birth. That essence. Or I sometimes struggle. I have to speak to lay people sometimes about this. They ask about rebirth, and what would you call that which continues after the body drops away? Mind, or
no? First of all, it's not rebirth. We talk about that as a convenient way of speaking, but it's not right, really, because it's not rebirth. Because there's nothing there reborn. I mean, the old simile was given of if you have a little row of candles and you light the first one, and then you from the first one you light the second and blow out the first. Is the second one part of the first one or not, or has it come from the first one or not? It's not like that. It's just that the other one's been blown out and it's disappeared completely. But you can't say that they're completely separate. Because the lighting of one from the other it has to light the other one first before it's blown out. So you can't say it's completely separate. In other words, what it is this: we make kamma, and we have good kamma and bad kamma. And one of the main and the important parts of kamma that we make is the kamma of wanting life, craving existence, like that. Because we crave existence, when we die, that craving is there, and it's the kamma there that's important. That kamma creates the vijnana. In other words, the chitta becomes vijnana, because the chitta then, with the addition of the kamma from the past, the chitta then becomes an entity. It's almost an entity anyway. You can't really say fully because it's too nebulous. But it becomes something which is subject to material change. But it doesn't have to do that for more than a moment. Because having done that, then the kamma has gone into that state. And once the kamma is attached to that, then the kamma keeps the thing going, keeps the ball rolling, so to speak.
So it's kamma and craving that continue after the...
The kamma is the important one. Kamma, and the chitta is just it's just the one that's always there. You can't pin it down at all. You can say it's vast and enormous, if you like, or a point. It's the same thing. Neither of them have got any difference.
Sometimes you hear it said, the one who knows. Sometimes they say, the one who knows. And is there any aspect of this recognizable or discernible?
One must be careful. It's the one who knows, but it doesn't mean to say he always knows right. I mean, Puru, they say, the one who knows, that is the chitta. That's the one who knows. The chitta becomes vijnana, and then it picks up the sensation and it knows it. But it can't do anything with that knowledge just like that. It's got to go to sanya, memory, to identify it. And once it's identified it, it'll probably then go to feeling. So do I like it or not? And then probably it'll go to sankhara, where we start thinking about and bringing other things from memory to add on to it. It sort of goes like that.
Is there anything commonly discernible in the present moment that might be an aspect of that, like lucid awareness or something?
As far as I can make out, under normal circumstances, we can't be aware of the present moment. You can only be aware of the moment that's just passed. Because our knowing is impermanent. And being impermanent, you have to have something that's changing. And because of that, the present moment must, so to speak, look back on the past moment, which is in memory, from memory. It comes up from memory, maybe elsewhere too, I'm not sure. Maybe other things bring it up. But it can't, the knowing in the present can only be there if it is a kind of knowing which is not knowing about anything. There's nothing there to know. And then it can be non-dual.
And so would you say one is able to discern just to that bare knowing?
One can't realize it, because there's nothing there to fix on. You could have two to know, to realize. You could have two things. There must be this realizing that. Really speaking, we're always in the present. We can't be anything else. But when we function, we must go back to the past. But the past has gone, so we can only bring up the remains of the past from memory. And what we get is just a memory of the past. Can come up in the present. The two together then give the phenomena of knowing something. It's too complex. It's a bit like electronics. In fact, the speed the mind works is a bit like electronics as well. All sorts of things.
When we talk of indriya samvara or sense restraint, then does it mean constantly shifting our awareness from sense to sense to check that it's more or less not falling into like and dislike, or is there one central point where you can?
Oh no, sense restraint means that you're not sort of having your gaze wandering about all over the place like that, looking for the women and the sort of what's on the television and things of that sort. It's just keeping that internally. It's what it really means. Sense restraint is not letting the chitta go out with the senses into the world. And if you do that, if you keep it internally, you'll have sense restraint automatically. Okay. If you're, for example, on feeling, if you think if it's like you're feeling something that's sensuous, then your mind goes out into the world to that thing. But if you just have the feeling there just as mere feeling, and you keep some chitta inside, it doesn't matter. It won't do any harm.
So the one part, it would maybe seem that guarding that point where feelings arising, to see if like or dislike is arising. That would be sort of that point in Paticca Samuppada.
Yeah.
And what would you say to that as sort of a contemplative practice, or?
The thing you should do there is, if you get feeling arising and there's a tendency to react with greed or hate, look at the feeling and keep the mind on the feeling, because that's the thing that's causing the trouble, or at least it's the object which the trouble is based on. It doesn't actually cause it. And you want to look at that feeling and realize this feeling comes from my own karma. I've created it. It's my own fault. I've got to put up with it until it dies away, because it's the nature and it will. That's really what one's got to do, and this is where mindfulness comes in, of course. One has to recognize it and realize that feeling is the core of the trouble, and that when that feeling is there, the tendency to react with greed or hate is very strong, or it can be.
Where does sanya come in the Paticca Samuppada?
Which?
Sanya. How can we? At what point does sanya come into?
No, sanya is one of the khandhas, and it would come into the Paticca Samuppada in nama rupa, because it'd be nama in the nama sense. Because sanya is one of the nama things.
But we notice the other parts of nama, vijnana, sankhara, and vedana, are coming separately.
Oh yeah, the thing is that the Paticca Samuppada only takes the significant things. It don't take everything. It only takes those significant things which are important in the cycle of going on through birth, death, like that.
To what extent would one want to manipulate, say, to watch one's attention and to see where attention goes, and to what extent would one want to manipulate that, or just to say take an active or a passive role?
It's not like if you're watching a young child and so guarding it and watching it, you don't interfere with its movements unless it's something dangerous or bad. Just let it go on. But you can, if you see it doing something that it shouldn't, you just stop it. And it's a bit like that. The watching is the memory's going on. Must be tired. Sanya. Sanya. There's the one that's really watching it. It's like a monitor at the back, in the background. It doesn't interfere unless it's essential, unless it must do. It lets what's going on go on, but it's there watching.
Would you say this practice of just watching is just more or less the same as basic mindfulness practice, or is there something passive about it?
Yeah, this watching is like as though you're in the background, but it's not a thing which you're trying to do. It's a thing which, because one's done the practice with mindfulness, comes up automatically by habit, and it's automatic then. When it's automatic, then the true mindfulness is there. But the practice of mindfulness is rather haphazard, like in learning to play golf, for example. I mean, first time you hit the ball, oh, it's wonderful. You think I'm good, I can hit the ball. Next time you can't hit the ball even. It's like that. It's good and bad, but as one goes on, with more and more practice, it becomes more, you can do it more and more readily and easily. That's the way of all things when we learn. We just have to learn how to do it, and we learn by practicing it.
So to have a goal in mind, would you say just to say you're aiming at just continuity of mindfulness, and just to keep on extending the intervals which you can maintain mindfulness in this way?
No, that's too much organizing it. Must try and get it so that you try and be mindful at any time, anywhere. And one should look on mindfulness as being a terrific value to the mind, because the restless thoughts that one have are all damaging. Restless thoughts, sort of whirling around in the mind, they're harmful. They don't do any good at all. They waste a lot of time, a lot of mental energy. Whereas if you're mindful, you're keeping those things under control more. And you're seeing what's happening, and you don't let them get away with it. I mean, the mind in most people's minds, they're wandering about all over the place, and they forget themselves half the time. They think of something miles away over there. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to be down there, sort of thing. They forgot themselves there, forgotten themselves here. And the idea of mindfulness is don't forget oneself. And keep your mind at base. And this is very valuable. And I mean, the more you do it, the more valuable you find it is. You realize how valuable it is. You can see for yourself.
Previously you had said that the kind of effort required for such an endeavor is more or less like not letting yourself fall asleep when you want to, but sometimes it seems to require just all of my energy to even be a little bit diligent in mindfulness.
Yeah, at first this is the way of training. One has to do it that way. Eventually it becomes automatic. in the way of training, it's like Tenajam says, it's like you're going up a mountain. You mustn't expect there to be a nice made paths or steps going all the way up. You have to scramble up, catching hold of roots and branches, and just pulling yourself up by that. It's like that. And this is the way one has to practice. Because the way you're going, there aren't any steps and any sort of handholds ready-made at all. And I mean, one has to recognize that the kilesas come up sometimes, and one can't battle when one hasn't got the strength for it. One has to recognize that, and well, it passes. And we can look back at it and learn from it.
You'll be here for many nights, would you? Please tell us whenever you'd like to take a rest.
It's all right. It's all right. I would say try to be mindful, but don't worry too much if you slip often. It doesn't matter, one's bound to. And I still can see how much past training one has had in the way of the world, going into the world and doing the things of the world. And you can't suddenly stop that and turn it into Dhamma. You can't do that. You've got to train oneself gradually.
Luang Por, we train ourselves in mindfulness by learning to be with something like Buddha or the breath.
Yeah.
That's the training.
That helps greatly. Try and do it all the time. Don't let go of it. But you'll find that when you do that, it's all right to begin with, and later on the kilesas come up to stop it. You have to recognize what's happening. Because when you do something to fight the kilesas or goes against the kilesas, like any enemy, they come up in force. And that's when you have to really try to overcome them. Because the kilesas are the things we have to overcome. They're the important things. And when they come up, that's an opportunity to get at them. It's very difficult to get at them when there's nothing rousing them up. Where are they? You can't find them. But when something rouses them, then you can see them straight away. And the practice, if it's done with effort, will rouse them up, no doubt.
unravels one, channels one's energy when one is feeling tired or feeling low? Can you give some examples?
I would recommend you try this. Take a deep breath and push it right down. Right down, yes. Right down. You push it right down. Internally. And then breathe it out slowly. After that you'll find it sort of refreshed you. If you still need a little more, you can do it again. But you probably have to breathe normally for a little while then. But it has quite a good effect.
How many times should one breathe in deep and then breathe out slowly? How many times should it be?
I don't do it more than twice or 3 times. Because we're not. This is a more sort of yogi thing, but it is effective.
Paul, I think previously you had said that you've only gone to see your Tenajam on several occasions about working through a difficulty or whatnot. But how important would you say it's been for you living with your Tenajam?
Oh, it's very valuable, very valuable. Because it's not just what you ask and questions. It's the example. It's the feeling of there being somebody really in charge. It's also the advantage of, I don't know, just the atmosphere kind of. People go to Wat Pa Bontard and they say, oh, this is not like the world. They say there's something strange about it. It's as though it's good here. They feel like it's good. A lot of people have said this. And the thing is, I think mainly the main thing is Tenajam. And what he's done and what he is. And that influence is there with people. And that's important.
So if you feel a sort of an emptiness or something that you ought to have guidance in close proximity, but you don't, how much energy should you invest in finding a situation to live with a teacher, or more or less becoming your own refuge?
If you can find a good teacher, it's very valuable. But if you can't, it's best to be one's own refuge. Because as the Buddha said this too. It's something where if you go to people who don't know the teaching and ask them, they may give you wrong answers. But then when the person's done that sometime, he won't necessarily go on with that one. It'll change to something else maybe. I mean, the person does the practice of the Parikama Buddho for some time. And then the time comes when they feel they've got to do the body practice, got to investigate the body. And that's the time for them to change. Another person will go on with the Anapana until they go very deep, very far in it. The two are two different characters.
So suppose you really feel like you've found a way of practice that suits you, and you get results from it and whatnot, and you don't seem to run into any difficulties. Would you say it's just may be okay to practice on in this way, and if you don't have the immediate guidance of a teacher, until you get a difficulty or...
No easy way of saying there, because it depends on one's own character, and depends what one means by going easy. Because sometimes if you find the practice is very easy, it means that it's not doing very much. In other words, the kilesas are not being roused up. If they're not roused up, then the practice will be easy. On the other hand, if you rouse the kilesas too much, that might be harmful as well. So it's really an individual thing, this. But generally you can say attention on it longer and keep on doing that. But one shouldn't expect results to come quickly. A few people do get them coming quickly, but it doesn't mean to say that everybody will. In fact, most people it takes quite a long time. And it's often better in that way, because if it takes a long time, the changes take place gradually. And they don't rouse too much of the kilesas. Kilesas will come up, but not too much. If the kilesas come up a lot with a person, then he must be a real strong character like Tenajam Mahabua. He could deal with them. But that was his character. The difficulty I think most people have is they don't really know what they're aiming at, what they're aiming for. And the thing one's aiming for is Nibbana, of course. But the getting of that has to be done in the right way. And the right way is to some extent an individual thing. Because it depends where the faults are and where the problems are. Although one can truly say that Nibbana is part of one's real true nature, one mustn't think it's easy getting there. That's very difficult. There have been, of course, a few geniuses in the past. You see, like people the Buddha taught, just in one talk he gave, and some people were enlightened just on that. But one assumes they must have had a lot of good karma. I think I've spoken too much. Another one. What's the situation with Pindapart and time of food in the morning?
Tomorrow morning you're welcome to go Pindapat to the kitchen, the same way that you...
Yeah, I couldn't go outside. I tried it once and couldn't.
So I'll set up for the other monks. Is it be at the Sala at 5:15?
5:30 now.
5:30 is when it starts.
Okay. 5:30, and then we'll arrange some alms routes.
Yesterday I got cracked in my heel. And that's like a bad sign. I'm probably get a lot more. I went on stage from last time, and like I know that would tear the hell out of my feet if I were to do it like one day. So if I could like avoid any rocky roads, would be great. I don't want to be moving around next week.
You go out in about 5:30 normally, do you?
The early routes will go at 5:30.
Mm.
I actually started around 6 o'clock. 5:30 set up.
Mm. Well, it's getting light about 6:15. Well, in Udon, I don't know here, it's maybe a bit different.
We'll have your Upatak go on alms round with you. We'll have your Upatak go on alms round with you, so you can,
Okay.
you can come here and
Yeah.
inform you when it's ready.
Okay.